Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or more shortened as a title to IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association, and as part of our effort to promote play, we've introduced these Porch Play Chats, which are conversations with people who are just as passionate about play as we are. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm president of IPA USA. And if you want to learn more about Porch Play Chats, go to our website at ipausa.org. Up in that top right-hand corner, be a friend on our Facebook page and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. With me on the porch today is Debbie Ray. Hey, Debbie.
Hey, Deb. How are you?
Great.
Good.
Debbie is the professor of kinesiology and founding director of the LiiNK Project at Texas Christian University. Dr. Ray's been an educator for the past 42 years, and the first 11 years she was in K-12 physical education, and the last 31 years she's been at the university level, preparing physical education teachers and researching children through physical activity and play. She's an author, researcher, motivational speaker, educational consultant, and behavior change trainer. And the research project she's most known for is LiiNK, Let's Inspire Innovation in Kids, which is moving schools to think differently about creating a whole child, whole teacher learning environment. Dr. Ray has received national media attention as a result of LiiNK from many different news outlets. She's published in numerous journals and presented professionally on many different topics related to living a healthy and productive life. She received the Chancellor's Award for Distinguished Achievement as a creative teacher and scholar, and a Healthcare Hero Award from the Dallas Business Journal and Fort Worth Business Press for her research to transform school policies and create intrinsically motivated, active, healthy children and adults. Her newest book, Wrong Turns, Right Moves in Education, reflects why the policies and procedures representing LiiNK are needed in educational systems today. And she is just talking my language today, because the focus of the Porch Play Chat that she's going to talk to us about is policies without belief go nowhere. Oh my.
That's the truth. You have to take a deep breath.
You do.
Because it really kind of hypes you up, doesn't it?
It does.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm already on a rant. So
I think we both are. We kind of stay there.
We do. It's like piling on. And so I feel like we have to, you mentioned earlier before we started the Porch Play Chat, which, you know, these intakes and outtakes that we do on either side of the Porch Play Chats, we should always record because they're amazing. But one of the things that you mentioned earlier is that we're trying to change up here,
yeah,
versus changing here.
Yeah.
And you know, in any advocacy effort, you always start at the ground level. Now, some people get frustrated.
I know.
When we start at the ground level and we say, no, but we need to be focused up here. But it's that groundswell,
yep,
of interest and motivation to make change that can sometimes create change up
correct.
Here.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about that.
Let's do. I'm excited about this. So yeah, let me just start with where you left it, is that LiiNK, the group that I've begun to, you know, work across local school districts and expand to other states, really works from that local change policy within where people are ready to make change happen. Because the resources that are needed in order to create a change have to be there, or change does not really happen. Mm-hmm. So when we start at this high level of state or federal, and we're really pushing for recess policies or play policies or community policies that will, you know, we think will force individuals to make change happen in their local entities. Sure, 30 minutes of recess, yay, we've got that in a state policy. But what does it really mean when they get at the local level? Okay, a school says, well, if the policy states that I need 30 minutes of recess daily, and it doesn't really say what are the parameters around that recess and how are we going to have the resources to provide that recess? So are we training teachers on how to transition kids in and out once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day? Are we making sure that they have the materials outside to actually have a productive recess? Do we have indoor materials that are satisfactory if we can't go outside because it's thunder and lightning and tornadic type winds or whatever it might be?
Excessive heat, like in Texas
Exactly,
right now.
excessive heat. Do we have the resources to be indoors to have the play experience as we would outdoors? All of these things are considerations. It's not as simple as let's just go outside and play, especially in a school setting. But if we set this policy around it, what are we really getting in return? Well, an example, just one example would be a school says, okay, we now have 30 minutes of recess, but we have a principal who does not believe that we need that much recess. So what they'll do is they'll schedule a time of 30 minutes. But what that really means is they go outside and the transition out there from their classroom counts. And if they're really slow at making that transition, they may get out there at, let's say it starts at 9:30. They get out there by 9:35, 9:37. They play, and then they call it quits early because when they're on their way back in, they may stop off to get water, go to the bathroom. So they're going to make sure that within that 30 minutes, they're getting all needs met, as well as this is part of their playtime. How much time do they really get? Well, it's probably more than they got when they only had 1 20-minute, but are they really getting a quality experience?
So I want to make a parallel
Okay.
thing. Licensing comes in, NAYC accreditation comes in, quality rating and improvement systems come in. And you, in all of those, you typically have a window.
Yep.
And so this is what this particular set of standards says that we must have in place when they walk in the door. So 2 things happen. Either programs in the window make sure they're covering all of those standards or criteria instead of living it every day. Or in the opposite case, which was me when I was a teacher, I didn't follow the rules and regs that I thought were too restrictive in how children learn. And when they came in, I took the hit because I wasn't gonna, you know, sometimes in state systems, they're on a criterion-based or a needs-based system where if you haven't had any violations, they're not going to see you for 5 years.
Right.
And if you have had violation, they may see you every 6 months, right? And so I wasn't going to make a conscious decision that I was going to line 25 children up to walk down the hallway to the bathroom and have them sit there lined up against the wall while 25 children used 3 toilets.
Yeah.
Right. I wasn't going to do that.
Right.
And so, and I wasn't going to do that every day because I didn't want to get in trouble. You make choices. It's kind of like hand washing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wash their hands before they eat. They wash their hands after they toilet. I never had them wash their hands before they went to the sensory table or after. I put a spoon of bleach in the water. And we washed our hands when we came in from the playground. And that was it.
Right.
And when ERS came in, I got a 2 in hand washing. I didn't care. I got a 6 in relationships. I got a 6 in active, you know, I didn't care. And so sometimes because we're so afraid of getting in trouble, or we're only going to do what we're doing, not because it's what we really believe and value, but because that's what the criterion says.
Mhm.
I think it's the same thing with
Yeah.
school districts, right? I
Yeah.
have to do this. I have to check this box.
Well, and the problem is that teachers are rule followers for the most part, right?
Yes.
We're rule followers. So if we're told you have to spend this much time in a content area,
Mhm.
then let me just fast forward. Then the policy needs to be that recess is content.
Mhm.
If we include recess as content, now we have opened the door to allow recess to be part of what we do on a daily basis. But unless we have that piece written in, and that's what legislators do not want to do,
Mhm.
that's the part they'll take out at the last minute. But if that were part of the recess, the recess policy, then we would still be rule followers, but we could take them outside throughout the day as part of their content experience.
Well, and think about all the language that happens
Oh,
outside in a content.
absolutely.
I
And
mean, you can count that as
I
content
know being able to
outside.
write,
Yes.
using your strength component of climbing and gripping and doing cartwheels and stuff, that helps you with your writing skills, being able to coordinate your motor skills. I mean, all of that is part of it.
All of it.
But with policy, we continue to think we need to be at the state level or at the federal level trying to beat the drum. But as you and I were talking before we really started recording, we've got to start at the ground level with this. And we've got to create the belief system of why is it important to be outside? Why is it important that play is part of the child's experience and part of the adult's experience daily? Why are these things important to the livelihood or the lifelong health experience of a child to death? All the way to 90 to 100 years old. Let's hope we all live to be that level. But what we need to understand is that right now, the reason we have homicide and suicide in our children, much of that is lack of play in children.
Yes.
They have a disconnect between socializing, being emotionally regulated,
Mhm.
and physically healthy. There's that disconnect, but we're not talking enough about that.
Mhm.
We're talking about we need recess in schools. We've got to get at the core of why we need recess in schools.
Well, and I think one of the things, and the statistics are back us up, right?
Yeah.
We have high levels of anxiety, high levels of depression,
Mhm.
high levels of suicide,
Yep.
high levels of obesity.
Yes.
I mean, the data is available to us. I just think we need to be a little more strategic
Yes.
in how we deliver our message using that data. And, if you're talking about the public school systems or the private schools in the primary grades and middle and secondary, we can also bring in those standardized test scores that we were
Yes.
talking about previously that have not improved.
No, they're getting worse. And one of the latest stories and it's just breaking my heart, but kids are being passed from year to year based on a test score, but they get to their senior year and they still can't read. What's happened with that, right? That they are still getting through a school system and they can't read before they graduate, but they're being passed. They're taking these tests. They're able to do the test, but they can't do just basic writing, reading, and math.
And
So
so we know, and again, there's lots of research out there that these standardized tests do not assess what children can actually do.
correct.
They assess what they can remember.
Yep.
Which is the lowest form of learning on Bloom's taxonomy.
It is.
And again, the people who are making these policies, and I say this with hopefulness,
Yeah.
are making them with good intentions.
Yes.
but the results are horrible.
Well, and the results, there's so much of a disconnect. Why haven't we learned this? If we look at any state or federal policy, and then we look at what's really going on in the school setting, if people don't have the resources to make it right, and they don't have the money, the monetary piece to make it right, some schools are getting great experiences, other schools are getting crappy experiences, but we're meeting, as you said, we're meeting the letter of the law, right? We can check the box.
And all we have to do is look at how schools are funded, right?
Yeah.
You know, so if I live in a low economic, socioeconomic area,
Yep.
my property taxes are not as high as another area.
Right.
And so my funding is less per pupil.
Correct.
And even though we don't want to be stereotypical, but when you consider the struggle of families who are living in lower socioeconomic areas,
Yep.
sometimes their children can't afford healthcare. Sometimes they have food insecurity. Sometimes there's more crime in the neighborhood. And so those schools with the lower socioeconomic property taxes that come with living there need more funding.
They do. You're right. Yeah, right. Well, and the kids that are part of those areas that have the low socioeconomic issues, when it comes back to what they're doing in class, because they are deprived of some things even outside of the school setting, or have trauma, abuse, neglect as well. You know, we have it across our whole country.
Everywhere. Yeah.
But they're seeing a lot of it in those areas as well because of frustrations and anger, anxiety, and so forth. Now they come to school, and when they're acting up in class because they need more time outside to get all of the frustrations out of their system, they're not getting that time because now it's being withdrawn for punishment, or they need more time on task to learn the material or whatever. So they're seeing less than groups of kids who could probably be okay with less. They are not okay with less. I mean, that's just putting more tragedy into those kids' lives. So doing worse. Yeah.
Into teachers' lives, right?
Absolutely.
And
more
so,
turnover rate of teachers as well.
Absolutely, which again goes back to children being able to form positive relationships with people who are caring for them, educating them, whatever it is that we want to call it. And, you know, it all goes back to Bruce Perry's trauma work, right? That until they feel safe, until they have their basic needs met, nobody with a toothache is going to learn anything. No one who's hungry is going to learn anything. No one who is traumatized by a one-time thing or a recurring thing are going to learn anything. And so it's almost like we have to go back and help the people who are making these policies, which I hope with good intentions, have really strayed down the wrong path because they're making policies without any understanding of how children learn and develop.
That's correct. Yep. The strength of understanding what surrounds the policy. The strength of that is very, very important. But if you don't have the ground swell of people who understand this and understand that there has to be more to it than what the policy itself is delivering, right? You must get this. And the fact that we're developing a policy that then takes place 3 months later. And there's no way of making the adjustments that need to be made in 3 months.
Right.
To get ready for this policy, right? It needs to be that if a policy is made, now we're going to give it a year of figuring out how we're going to make this possible. Then the following year we can launch it, right?
Right.
So that there's time to catch up. But there's also got to be that groundswell with principals, well, superintendents, principals, teachers, all the extracurricular people, bus drivers. I mean, you just think about lunchroom workers, whoever it is that we're working with, everybody's got to be part of this picture and be educated on it. I can't tell you how many people I talk to on a regular basis, teachers, who say, we do not need to go outdoors. We can do our play experiences indoors. They're going to get just as much out of it as going outdoors. No, they're not.
No, they're not.
Heart rates aren't going up. The socialization, you're still tamping down on the socialization piece because they got to be quiet in a classroom. All those things are still negated. And then the outdoors itself, just the immune system boosting. D3 is a huge promoter there. Your visual acuity from being outside, being able to see more clarity, being able to see colors better, fresher, being able to have that fresh air. Breathe in fresh air instead of breathing in circulated
recycled air.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all these things that the outdoor is more important about. And we don't understand that, right? So we think we've got to have recess, but can we just do it inside? Do we have to go outside? Do we have to have it individual recess by classroom, or can we have everybody together? Well, how do we do that? I mean, there are just things that people have to understand so that when they launch this, they're ready to go out and do it, right?
And so you wonder if we could describe the dream primary grade setting, and we could provide ideas around how to implement and the purpose behind, so I just go back to what we're already dealing with, right? So we're dealing with licensing rules and regs, which vary from state to state.
Yep.
Which in some states are not minimally protecting children's health and safety. Right. And in other states have lifted that up so that the ratios are better and the safety precautions are better. But then sometimes they're overdone. Right. Because, you have to have stuff that is not good for children's development or we're too safe. So it's just like we're all over the map. But I wonder if we could start at the local level and start advocating in our local area about why this is important and the reason why children go outside for recess and not have recess inside. And what happens developmentally or physically or whatever, health-wise, for each one and the rationale behind it.
And let me add, make sure that we extend the weather range.
Yes.
Because right now in most places, we're at like 50 degrees in the South. I know in the North, they've got that a lot lower, right? In some areas it's below zero, that they're, I know in the upper peninsula of Michigan and Alaska, they can go to -20, minus, whatever, and they're okay. But having that, let's say, depending on where the country is, having that range of weather, at least for LiiNK, we have it at 13 degrees to 103 field temperature. And the reason for that is the National Weather Service and the CDC has said that you can be in tank tops and shorts and barefoot in those temperatures for 20 minutes or less outdoors. And you're not going to have frostbite and all those things that go with it, right? You're going to be okay. So if we could have some standards like that say, look, depending on where you are, you could expand to here, depending on what you have in clothing and access to clothing. So like the North, they might be able to do things at -20 to 100 because they've got the resources in families with jackets and the things that they need to go to that -20. But that's also part of it, because it's important that we don't say, well, at 50 to 85 or 50 to 90, that's our range. And that's what we're sticking to. Well, now you've got the majority of your school year, everybody's indoors because they're outside the range of the weather. So I didn't mean to cut you off, but I think that's an important piece.
It's another tool
Yes.
that we could use in the toolkit to get people to see. But I want to go back to teachers who say, well, we can just do recess inside. So whose stuff is that, right?
Yeah.
So it's the teacher that may not want to go outside. Maybe
Correct.
they went outside, right? Maybe they feel uncomfortable outside.
Yep.
Maybe physically it's difficult for them to go outside. So another strategy for me is to always have 2 people outside for recess, and teachers can just drop them off like they do for specials.
Yep. Well, and my feeling is teachers need to be outside, even with health conditions. Even with health conditions, they need to be outside because their health conditions will actually get better, not worse. Just like our kids who have asthma, I'll relate it to teachers who have asthma. If they have asthma, they think that the outdoors is producing the asthma through grass or elm trees or oaks or whatever it might be. But in reality, if we get them outside, the immune system boosts so that now it can fight these things that they've been thinking that the outdoors constitutes. It actually promotes it. It really doesn't. We can fight these things that we think right now are so bad for us outdoors. So the teachers need it as much as the kids do. So I'd say they still need to go out.
Okay, I think let's send them out.
Okay,
then.
all right.
Out they go.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing, though, that I think that we fight against is wives' tales, right? Oh, we don't want to go out because that's where we get colds.
Yep.
That's where we.
I know.
It's inside, people. It's all
I know.
those germs floating around in the air.
And you know what I would say too is when you only go out one time for 15 or 20 minutes, you're not going to change that needle much on the immune system. If you can get them out there repetitive times, now you're changing the needle. So when you talk about, having these issues with the outdoors or whatever it might be, not only do we need to get them outside, we need to get them outside repeatedly so that they can really boost the immune system and fight the health chronic diseases that they have.
So as we're thinking about this, and it's time we have to wrap up. I'm not ready to, but we have to because I've got somebody else coming on. But
we can do plan B. We can do another one later on.
We can, plan B. What are 2 or 3 things people could start with at the local level?
Yeah. So I think number one is teachers. If there's a teacher that's hearing this, that really wants to create a change, asking to have professional development at the school on just, how can we bring at least the minimum that a policy might ask for? How can we get this and then get support from the principals to make sure that we get that daily and that teachers really are taking their kids out, right? That this is something that we get teachers to get their kids outside. Because Deb, I heard you say it already, and I'm the same way you are. I will work within a rule and bend it to make sure that it works for my kids, just as you would. And so if I felt like it was a good day outside and I wanted to take them out for an extra 15 or 20 minutes and we wanted to read out there, we would do it. Or we'd go out and we'd play and then take our books with us and read afterwards outdoors. Just don't come back in until after we've had our reading time, play, come do our reading and then come back in. But we have to have all teachers believing that that's important. And so number one is to help make sure that if there is a teacher who can start working on a principal to say, can we have professional development to say, this is why we need it, and that all teachers need to take their kids out. And then educate them on why they need to be out as an adult as well. That's really important. you'll get these teachers out guaranteed more than if you just say, well, those of you who believe that they need to be outside, if you want to take them out, go ahead and do so for 15 or 20 minutes or, whatever you want to. Well, you'll only get the believers. You won't get the non-believers. We've got to get that part changed, right? And number two is that we need to quit thinking, and you already said it. We need to quit thinking that bathroom and water needs to be associated with a scheduled time.
Yeah.
And instead, we let the kids go to the bathroom when they want to. And with water, start requiring that on the list of required things at the beginning of a year, water bottles are on there.
Mhm.
And that children will have the water bottles in their classrooms and they can just fill it when they need to, but they'll have their water 24/7. They don't have to worry about standing at a water fountain for 8 seconds and then it's the next person's turn to go.
Yeah.
Let them have time when they need to. So those are the first two things I'd say. If we could get those things going, we're starting.
We might make a difference.
We might make a difference.
Okay, so again, we have to do this again because I think there's so much more to unpack just with this one thing.
Absolutely.
And so we'll do that again, but I just stay right there because I have another idea.
Okay.
While I close this out. So to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.